2 weeks before the biggest World Cup in football history, something feels completely wrong. Not on the pitch, not inside the stadiums, but outside them. Because across the United States right now, hotels are quietly lowering prices. Flights are failing to fill up, fan festivals are being cut back, and some World Cup matches still have tens of thousands of unsold seats left. This was supposed to be FIFA's masterpiece. 48 nations, 3 host countries, the most expensive and ambitious football tournament ever created. Instead, it is starting to look like a World Cup trapped inside a geopolitical storm. Fans are backing out. Travel costs are exploding. Governments are clashing. And for many supporters around the world, the dream of attending a World Cup in America is turning into a logistical nightmare. But the most shocking part is this. Football itself is no longer the main story. Politics is. And what FIFA did not expect was that every major global tension of 2026 would crash directly into its biggest event. When FIFA awarded the 2026 World Cup to the United States, Canada, and Mexico, the message was simple. This would become the biggest sporting event humanity had ever seen. Bigger than Qatar, bigger than Russia, bigger than Brazil. And the United States already had the infrastructure. Massive NFL stadiums, huge airports, luxury hotels, entertainment districts, corporate sponsorship money flowing everywhere. FIFA believed this tournament would redefine football forever. The format expanded from 32 teams to 48 for the first time in history. More games, more fans, more money, more television rights, more sponsorships. Billions of dollars were expected to flow into host cities across North America. Hotels expected record bookings. Restaurants hired extra workers. Tourism agencies prepared for millions of international supporters. Everything looked unstoppable. But then reality started creeping in. Quietly at first, then all at once. Because the closer the tournament gets, the more unstable the entire project suddenly looks. The first major warning signs appeared inside the hotel industry. And behind the scenes, executives across multiple World Cup host cities started getting nervous very quickly. FIFA quietly canceled thousands of reserved hotel rooms just weeks before kickoff. That matters because major sporting events depend on momentum. Hotels survive on long-term bookings. Cities survive on tourist traffic. And when reservations suddenly disappear this close to the event, it usually means one thing. Demand is weaker than expected. Philadelphia reportedly lost thousands of FIFA hotel room reservations. Mexico City saw huge reductions, as well across multiple host cities. Prices started falling instead of rising. That is the exact opposite of what was supposed to happen. This tournament was expected to create a tourism explosion unlike anything football had ever seen. Instead, hotels suddenly found themselves scrambling to refill rooms they once believed were guaranteed money. And that created a terrifying question nobody wanted to say out loud. What if international fans simply are not coming in the numbers FIFA promised? But empty hotels were only the beginning, because then the ticket sales numbers started leaking out, and suddenly FIFA had a much bigger problem. For many football supporters around the world, the 2026 World Cup stopped feeling like football and started feeling like luxury tourism. Ticket prices exploded. Flights exploded, hotels exploded, transportation costs exploded, and suddenly attending even one match inside the United States became financially impossible for millions of ordinary fans. Some tickets reached prices never seen before in World Cup history. The final alone became so expensive that many supporters online began comparing it to a luxury vacation instead of a football match. And this matters because World Cup atmosphere has never depended on wealthy corporate guests. It depends on ordinary supporters, the noise, the passion, the chaos, the emotion. Fans who saved money for years just to follow their national team across the world. But now huge numbers of those fans are looking at the total cost of attending the tournament and quietly deciding not to go. And once football supporters stop believing the World Cup belongs to them anymore, the entire identity of the tournament begins to change. Some matches reportedly still had huge sections of unsold seats left. Even games involving major nations struggled to fully sell out. FIFA was suddenly forced to adjust ticket sale strategies in ways that signaled growing concern internally, because for the first time in years, demand was no longer guaranteed. Then came the political crisis, and this is where the entire tournament truly became unstable. Travel restrictions, visa complications, border fears, security concerns. Suddenly, supporters around the world began asking themselves a question FIFA never wanted connected to the World Cup. Is it even safe to go? Across social media, boycott discussions started spreading rapidly. Fans posted screenshots of canceled travel plans. Others explained they no longer felt welcome entering the United States. And for FIFA, this became catastrophic, because the World Cup has always sold itself as the one event where the entire planet comes together. But now, parts of that world suddenly felt locked out. Supporters feared immigration issues, delays, airport questioning, border complications, and the online backlash kept growing. The football itself slowly disappeared from the conversation. Instead, the headlines became political. Immigration, security, protests, government policies, border control. That is a nightmare scenario for FIFA, because once politics becomes bigger than the sport, the tournament loses control of its own image. And then things became even more dangerous, because one geopolitical conflict suddenly threatened to overshadow the entire tournament itself. Iran qualifying for the World Cup should have been a football story. Instead, it became a global political controversy. Questions immediately came up about safety, diplomacy, security, and international tensions. Suddenly, one of the tournament's participants became part of a geopolitical crisis much larger than football itself. That is devastating for FIFA, because the organization desperately wants to focus to stay on the game. But by this point, football no longer controlled the narrative. Every new political headline created more uncertainty around the tournament. Oil prices surged. Airfares increased dramatically. International travel became more expensive almost overnight. Fans across multiple continents suddenly faced impossible decisions. Flights cost more. Hotels stayed expensive. Visa complications kept growing. And for many supporters, the dream of attending the World Cup in America simply stopped making financial sense. The closer the tournament gets, the more fragile the atmosphere begins to feel. FIFA still insists everything will be spectacular, but behind the scenes, concern is growing everywhere. The World Cup will still happen. The stadium lights will turn on. The anthems will play. Goals will be scored. Fans will celebrate. But FIFA's biggest fear is no longer cancellation. It is embarrassment, because empty sections inside stadiums will completely destroy the image FIFA spent years trying to build. The organization wanted the greatest World Cup in history. Instead, it risked becoming the most politically divisive World Cup modern football has ever seen. And perhaps the most dangerous part for FIFA is this. The global conversation is no longer about football, not about tactics, not about Messi's final World Cup years, not about Mbappe, not about rising football nations. The conversation is about borders and politics, money, fear, access, immigration, economic inequality, and that changes the emotional identity of the tournament completely. The World Cup was supposed to unite the world. Instead, it is beginning to reflect every division already happening across the world. Maybe the 2026 World Cup will still break attendance records. Maybe millions of fans will still arrive. Maybe the stadiums will eventually fill. But something important has already changed. For decades, the World Cup represented escape, a rare moment when politics disappeared and football united everyone. That illusion is collapsing because the 2026 World Cup is becoming something much bigger than sport, a mirror reflecting the modern world itself. Economic anxiety, political division, travel fear, global tension, and the growing feeling that the biggest events on Earth are no longer built for ordinary people anymore. The football itself will still be incredible. It always is. But years from now, people may remember this World Cup less for what happened on the pitch and more for everything happening outside the stadiums. Because when the biggest sporting event on Earth becomes too expensive, too political, too complicated, and too difficult for ordinary supporters to attend, one question remains. Who exactly is the World Cup really for?